And welcome. I am Abosedi Adenio standing in for Nifemi Oguntoye on Beyond the Headlines. Tonight, focus is on the 2027 general election and the reactions trailing Senate's position on the Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2026. Well, reactions are trailing the amendment bill, and just yesterday, the minority caucus of the Senate dismissed claims circulating in parts of the media that the National Assembly had rejected the electronic transmission of election results in the ongoing amendment to Nigeria's Electoral Act. While addressing journalists at the National Assembly, Senator Eyinaya Baribe, who represents Abia South, who led the opposition lawmakers, clarified that as part of the next phase in the amendments process, Harmonization Committee has been set up to consider and unify the document from both chambers of the National Assembly, that is, the Senate and the House of Representatives.
Both the Electoral Committee of the Senate, then the Ad hoc Committee of the Senate, and also in the executive session that we had, that we all agreed on section 63, which is electronic transmission of votes, or electronic transmission of results. Transmit, not transfer. What is in 2022 is transfer, and we don't want a law that is vague. We don't want a law that will be misinterpreted by anybody. We want a law that is clear, concise, and can be interpreted by all, and that is unambiguous.
Let's now walk you through some of the provisions of the bill. The Senate insists that it did not reject electronic transmission of results, but it retained the existing law that allows INEC to determine the mode of transmission. The Senate also shortened election timelines, adjusted penalties for vote buying and PVC trading, retained PVCs as the sole voter identification, replaced card readers with beavers, and it struck out key provisions on non-compliance that could affect how election cases are decided in law court. Now, joining me to critically examine the matter beyond the headlines is Bayo Adedosu. He is co-convener, Africa Data Warehouse, and he joins me from Toronto in Canada. Ms. Adedosu, good evening and welcome to the program.
Yeah, good afternoon over there in your studio. It's afternoon here, but good evening at the same time to Nigeria. How are you doing today?
Very well. It's amazing how technology unites us, and we can across borders just have conversations. So, Ms. Adedosu, you will agree that we are at a critical juncture in the process of amending the Electoral Act. First, what is your reaction to the Senate's position on electronic transmission of results?
Thank you very much concerning this topic. It's something that we need to trash once and for all. And to a large extent, I think the Senate did not even get its act right. And I'll tell you why I think the Senate did not get its act right. We are still struggling with connectivity, internet connectivity in Nigeria. And some people are saying that transmission of election results should be made mandatory. And I'll tell you why. Let me now tell you why I said the Senate is lazy, or the National Assembly as a whole. Because Section 64 of the Electoral Act stipulates that in a case where there is a dispute or conflict between the result transmitted and the collated result, that the transmitted result will subsist. That means it will be recognized. This is where manipulation can occur. And it's obvious that the opposition or the minority, just as it happened in 2022, 2023, towards the election, that the INEC system was hacked, they know that the moment there is a conflict between the transmitted results and the collected results, that is the form EC8A, that all the party agents will append their signatures at the polling unit that they have to sign to affirm that the result counted and declared are true. They know that once they go to court, the electronic result, that means the electronically transmitted result, will now be the one to use. So that gives them the leeway to want to tamper with INEC system and change results.
Mr. Adedosu, that is a big allegation, a weighty allegation that you are making there. I believe you also are a proponent of technology, the fact that it's the 21st century and parts of the world, elections are conducted electronically. As a matter of fact, from the comfort of your base there in Toronto, you should be able to vote and your vote should be able to count. Don't you think that might just be what, this section of the people...
Let me quickly correct that impression. As somebody that monitored the election in 2023, via Africa Data Warehouse, I can authoritatively tell you that Nigeria is trying to jump ahead of itself. We are not doing electronic voting. When we are not doing electronic voting, how can you conduct an election manually? And you now want to say that election results will be transmitted electronically and must be mandated. Are you aware that even in the United States, prior to the last election, some politicians, some Democrats, presidential aspirants were requesting that America should go back to paper trail? Because we all know the Russian interference in the 2020 election in the United States, simply because the algorithms, the results in the system were manipulated, were tampered with. And please, don't say I'm making spurious allegation, because it was glaring that INEC said that people tried to tamper with their database, and the people that were arrested days before the election were people of the opposition. So I'm not just throwing things out. And let me also tell you, in Canada, you need to physically go to the polling unit, to your polling station, to go and cast your vote, and the vote will be counted there. So if we are not doing electronic voting and we want to have electronic transmission of results, how do we merge it together?
All right, so for you, Mr. Adedosu, so just to be clear, let me make this point, please. Just to be clear, your position is that for us to decide that electronic transmission of results has to be electronically done, I mean, for us to mandate that it has to be electronically transmitted, then it means that the election itself needs to have been conducted electronically. Is that what you're trying to say?
It's a two-way thing. It's a two-way thing. But the honest truth is, the law, as it stands today, allows INEC to transmit results in a certain way that it chooses. Why is the same law why is it that laws are not being passed to say the system that will receive the result, that should also be a system that will be used to conduct the election? Let me tell you one thing. I'm an IT consultant, okay? And by virtue of that, I work a lot with data. And I can tell you for a fact that where we are having the issue of connectivity, there are remote areas where they don't even have internet. Get it clear that two systems are being used. We have the Beavers, which is for the accreditation of voters, okay? And the moment voters are accredited, it goes into the INEC server, into the INEC system. That in itself is a check on the electoral process. Then we have the IREV. The IREV that people are saying, oh, they cannot see the result should be transmitted to IREV. IREV is just a dashboard. Whether we like it or not, the first step in conducting an election and declaring the election is manual collation of results. And it is upon the completion of the manual collation of results that results are entered into the INEC form EC8A that all party agents would now sign. It is from this same form EC8A that people are now insisting that the results should now be electronically transmitted. The electronic transmission does not invalidate by law the manual collation of the results. And now, I said something earlier that there is an ambiguity. There is a jump in the process because now the electoral law simply says in a case where there is a conflict that the transmitted result will now subsist. What happens to the collated result that all party agents sign to? That is where I have problem with what the Senate and the entire National Assembly, both the the House of Reps and the Senate have done so far. This is a critical area that they need to look into. Electronic transmission of results. Let me just finish this process.
Okay, go very quickly, please.
Yeah, I'm just trying to tell you that the electronic transmission of results, the transmitted result electronically should not subsist where there is a conflict, because all you need to do in court is to call the party agent to verify that, because they have their own copies, is to verify the copies they have and the copies with INEC and see if they match. You're not saying when those copies match, the one in the system will not be the one you are validating. It is a wrong premise.
As it stands, Mr. Adedosu, as it stands, the Senate is yet to pass this bill, and as a matter of fact, it has set up a harmonization committee, which is meant to review the document, the different versions from the Senate and from the House of Representatives, and come up with something that is united, that they will then present to the president for assent. And but you know, as it is already, there are actually reactions. We hear concerns being raised by some civil society organizations, and their position is that this version that we're hearing about does not reflect stakeholder consultations. What's your reaction to that?
Let me ask, who are the stakeholders in this instance? To start with, there was no public hearing. When we are talking about stakeholders, part of the stakeholders we should consider are the telecoms, because the conduct of the election relies on internet availability. Where we do not have strong internet connectivity, to a large extent, internet has not even become a basic thing in Nigeria. Where internet has not become a basic thing, how do you want to jump ahead yourself? You cannot make a non-functional requirement and turn it to a functional requirement. That is just using an IT balance in business analysis, IT systems analysis. And that is exactly what we're trying to do. Part of the stakeholders that need to be consulted are actually the telecoms. That can they support, can they guarantee that if Nigeria decides to adopt electronic transmission of results, that they can support it. Where we do not have satellite internet, it cannot fly. It simply means the moment they could not transmit it at that point in time and party agents have left the polling unit and gone, the electoral officer will now find a place where he finds connectivity to enter figures that he likes. And this is open to manipulation. We all know that people buy elections, they buy votes, they buy all kinds of stuff when election comes. And this is part of what the National Assembly, particularly the Senate, is trying to legislate on. If we do not fix those little things, we cannot jump ahead of them. We need to put a process in place, a check and balance, before we can now start talking about why are
I hear you, Mr. Adedosu,
high on electronic transmission. Let me give you an instance.
It's a critical point, and you know, Mr. Adedosu, that's been on since the 2023 election. There was a lot of comments, if you remember, about IREV, whether the results were uploaded, whether the results uploaded, you know, tallied with what was being presented by agents and all of those. But we do need to take a break now, Mr. Adedosu. When we return, we'll talk about what the position of the Senate is regarding, for instance, the notice of election and also the fine as stipulated at the moment in this particular amendment that is being worked on. Stay with us, everyone. We'll be back in just a moment. You're watching Beyond the Headlines. Our focus is the 2027 general election, and now the Senate amendment of the Electoral Act amendment bill. That discussion is ongoing. My guest, Ms. Adedosu is joining me from Toronto in Canada. So, Ms. Adedosu, the Senate in this amendment has reduced the notice of election from 360, which is almost a year, to 180 days now, 6 months, and also submission of candidates from 180 to 90 days. How do you suppose this could actually impact the conduct of the election, the process itself now?
Well, we all know that Nigerian politicians don't actually play by the rules. A lot of them have started their scheming as far back as immediately after the last election, 2023. So whether they decided to shrink it or whatever, does not really make much of a difference. The most important thing, and this is where we need to talk about stakeholders, was INEC consulted in doing this? How long will it take INEC to be ready to carry out its duties and its functions with the new legislation that is coming up? Because just saying you are reducing the number of days to 180, yes, 180, it gives the party enough time. But will parties also, does it mean that electioneering process within political parties does not start until after INEC rolls out its timetable? And if that is the case, how will erring parties, political parties, be sanctioned for jumping the gun ahead of INEC? So there needs to be a balance. That's what I'm saying. A lot of things have been left too open, and these gaps will be exploited. Whether they 6
and in
months,
this case,
INEC
yes,
can meet up. But hey, I don't really see a big deal with that particular amendment.
All right, so
it doesn't make a lot of impact.
Okay, but are you also then proposing perhaps a special court to try matters, election matters in Nigeria?
We don't need to have a special court to try election issues in Nigeria. We have the right court in place. How many? Our judiciary is there. But the honest truth is because the judiciary is overburdened. That is why electoral adjudication takes so long. But remember, for every election cycle, there is always tribunal. That is what the tribunals will do, except if we want to have a standing court, which is a good idea, because local government elections don't run at the same time as the general elections. So that way, we can have a court that will take the pressure off our regular court. Let me even ask a question. Those who are found wanting during the last election, buying of votes, those who are arrested for trying to hack the INEC system, what has happened to them?
Critical
we have
question.
not had anything. There has not been any update. Maybe if we actually have an electoral court to try instances like this, then people will begin to have confidence more in what INEC is doing. There needs to be transparency. People need to be able to see. The political parties want to see transparency,
and also at this time, Mr. Adedosu, at this time also the Senate. Okay, you said you expect something. Please land on that, and then I'll take the next point.
Yeah, what I expect is that the INEC itself will approach the National Assembly, the Senate, and the House of Reps to say, when people are arrested for electoral offenses, there needs to be a way to expedite their trials so that people can see their own transparency and have confidence in the electoral process. Because people have this belief that whoever is arrested will be settled, and they will be settled in a matter of days. Nigerians need to see
the Senate has something.
There are actions being taken.
The Senate has something to say about that. It has made some key changes to, fines for vote buying, trading of PVC, but also it rejected a proposed 10-year jail term or political ban on whoever is caught doing these things. Do you suppose that might actually be strong enough to deter people from engaging in these actions that cause harm to our electoral process?
There is electoral offenses should be treated as capital crime. Because, why do I say it should be treated as a capital crime? Because electoral offenses is simply a way of trying to steal people's wishes away from them. It is another form of stealing. And the National Assembly should be more interested in what happens to electoral offenders beyond just trying to say 2 years is just too much. It's just like a slap on the wrist. And
how many years do you propose?
Of course, 10 years is minimum. 7 years to 10 years should be the minimum as a deterrent. And the honest truth is, it should be without an option of fine. There are some cases, there are some offenses that we should remove options of fine from, because the people who send them on errands will pay this money on their behalf. But when they know there will be no option of fine, that if found guilty, they will go to jail, trust me, it will reduce the cases of electoral manipulation by political parties. That is what we need to do. But saying 2 years is just like the Senate itself trying to cover up crimes of electoral offenses.
Aside that, we see that the Senate has actually retained PVCs as the only, the sole voter identification. It has at this time rejected electronically generated or downloadable voter cards. At a time when some Nigerians struggle to collect their permanent voter cards, do you suppose this is some form of disenfranchisement, or how do you see it?
The moment an election cycle completes, automatically people should start the process for the next election cycle. And what do I mean by that? When we give leeway for people to be able to download their PVCs or voters card online, that opens it up to manipulation. What do I mean by manipulation? Counterfeiting. It will be easily counterfeited, because once a criminal, and political parties, when it comes to elections, they have people do all this dirty job for them. Once they see it, they can reproduce it to the point that the real people are not the people voting. And that is why BVAS is very important. I agree with this, that only PVC should be a form of identification. I don't see any reason why people who are able to receive their PVCs via mail, or people can subscribe to actually pay, just the same way they say they will bill it. Let there be that option for people to say, mail my voter's card to me. That way people will have it. Or let them even make it to be something that can be collected at local government secretariats. Let INEC have a standing office in every local government secretariat where people can go. This way it expands the scope and nobody will feel disenfranchised. That is the solution right there that can actually tackle this problem. But for me, PVC should be the only form of identification for voting. Even though here, I can't just go and say, I'm showing my face or I'm giving my name to somebody, and it's either I show my driver's license or I show my Canadian passport for me to vote.
All right, Mr. Adedosu, the conversation continues, right? And then we'll wait to see what the Harmonization Committee brings forth on white paper as what will be assented to by the president. But of course, also, countdown is on already to the 2027 general election. My guest has been Bayo Adedosu, co-convener, Africa Data Warehouse. Thank you very much for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much for having me on the program. Have a wonderful evening.
You too, Ms. Adedosu. Well, that's been it on Beyond the Headlines. We thank you very much for watching. You can watch a repeat broadcast at midnight and at 6 a.m. I'm Abosedi Adedesu. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.